We start tonight with this. Yep, Viva Las Vegas. After 78 days in the dark, Sin City is back in business, and you're looking at the incredible scene at the D Casino in Las Vegas shortly after it reopened at midnight. You can see the casino floor is absolutely packed. Very few people are wearing masks. No social distancing taking place. So, is this worth the gamble? Let's bring in the journalist who shot this video, Mick Akers, with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mick, great to have you with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Was it as crowded as it looks in the video?
Yeah, it was. That was taken 9 minutes after they opened the doors and let people in, so people are ready to fill in, pretty quickly there. Wasn't expecting it to be that packed, but yeah, that video is pretty true to form there.
I mean, what struck me when I saw this on Twitter earlier today, Mick, was that I thought maybe this video got mixed up with pre-pandemic video of the D Casino. But in fact, this is a scene that you have been witnessing all over the place. I mean, you've been going up and down the Strip all day long into the airport as well.
Yeah, I was just at McCarran Airport. Tons of travelers coming in. I've been going there ever so often, during the shutdown, and it's been a ghost town. So you've seen all these people there. It's kind of weird seeing that back. Some of our reporters are all around the city. The Bellagio reopened today, had a pretty good crowd. Flamingo, Caesars, all those have, some great crowds there. So, people are obviously ready to get back to this gambling action here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and I want to show some of the video that we have of the Bellagio, because in some of this video, I mean, obviously in some areas of the hotel, there is social distancing taking place. For instance, when they first open the doors in the lobby, but later on you see video of lines, people waiting in lines, and they're on top of each other, and they're not everybody is wearing a mask. Mick, are you surprised, at the reopening that people aren't necessarily following the rules to a T on the very first day? I mean, what's it going to be like in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I was surprised. Like last night, I would say 15 to 20% of people had masks on. All the employees had masks on. I'm talking about customers, so I was a little surprised on that end. Social distancing, that wasn't even a thing. They have dots on the ground in certain areas, but people weren't really adhering to that. Slot machines are supposed to be cut off. Every other one supposed to be turned off with a seat removed. But there was some locations where all the seats were in there, and there's like 10 people in a row filling the whole entire station. So I was a little surprised that, that it wasn't being followed to a T. But we'll see how this plays out over this weekend, and maybe we'll see if there's any kind of complaints or anything, and, some adjustments will be made.
Right. The D Casino is not on the Strip, so have you seen a differentiation between the protocols being followed on the Strip versus off Strip?
Yeah, it seems a little bit more, to the book on the Strip. They took a little bit more precautions there. A lot of them, their temperature scanners, I think, are a little bit more accurate. The one at the D, they're doing it on your wrist, and people weren't even testing above 98 degrees most of the time, which was surprising. The ones on the Strip looks like they're a little bit more advanced on those. So, and they also have plexiglass in some of these gaming tables and some of the slot machine areas, keeping space between people. Hand sanitizer stations throughout, disinfecting, high-touch areas. Mm-hmm. And some of the MGM properties have hand-washing stations on the floor, so you don't have to go into the restroom to wash your hands. You can do it right there on the gaming floor. All
right. Mick, thanks for giving us a glimpse of Vegas on reopening night. We appreciate it, Mick Akers. You might be wondering why we started with the video of Las Vegas. Well, it's because it really encapsulates both the hope and the fear surrounding the reopening of the economy. The hope, of course, is that the consumer will come back strong, as we saw with the crowds at those casinos on opening day. But the fear, of course, is that the reopening could seed another wave of coronavirus infections, a second wave, if you will. So how do you trade this? And are we sort of at a wait-and-see moment in this rally, Guy, as we reopen, we await the impact on the infection rate, et cetera?
I believe it's a wait and see, and Tim's about to kill me for saying this, but, the Mets every year will sell out opening day, and then a week and a half later, there are more people selling concessions than are people in the stands. And, that's, well, I told you were going to kill me. Just give me a second, then you can go from there. My point is, it makes sense that you saw the type of crowds on reopening. My sense, it's going to somewhat wane. That's really not the point. I'll tell you this. I don't have much of a memory, but March 20th happened to be a Friday, and we do, as you know, a truncated show. And on that day, we were looking for green shoots. And I remember Tim and I both mentioned the performance of Wynn that day. It reversed, I think, off a 35 low, closed higher on the day. And we mentioned that was a good sign. And since then, we've been relatively positive on these casino stocks. But I think now's the time you pull the ripcord and take profits. I think on May 21st, Credit Suisse initiated neutral with a $75 price target on Wynn, and that makes sense. I'm not suggesting to short them, but I do think if you've enjoyed this run over the last couple months, now's the time to take some money off the table.
Tim Seymour, I'll let you go ahead. You Mets fan, you.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, it could also be a sign of the casinos are like the Yankees throwing big money at the dice at the craps table. You have a case here where this data, these videos, this assessment of Las Vegas coming back or not, reminds me a lot of what we were talking about yesterday as it related to the poll of who was going to take a vaccine if given, or who's just going to just go for it. And I think there's a sense of an inevitability of this virus until there's actually a vaccine, and some sense for a lot of folks that we just got to get on with it. If you look at the economy and you look at the data points we've had, they're not green shoots. They are less bad. So it's essentially the delta on where we are coming from is been what's getting people to feel better. If you look at the bond market, look at the Treasury market, look at the move in the last 3 days, we've had a 20 basis point move in the 10-year. So we closed at 82, 83 basis points. Nothing to get excited about per se, but this is 10-week highs. The bond market, more than the equity market on some level, has certainly traded in a very tight range and has been, on some level, really what people were waiting for. I'm not telling you that we should be seeing yields move very quickly higher. But when you look at the weaker dollar, the yields breakout, the reflationary stuff that continues to trade and be the best part of the market right now, whether you're investing in resources or energy or shippers or rails, that's the part that I think is reflective of what this Las Vegas scene is telling you about the appetite for health risk in this country.
In terms of confirming this move, and Dan, I'm going to go to you because you have highlighted financials as being the worst chart in the markets. It signals all sorts of bad things. We've had financials trade really well for a while now. And so can you say at this point, maybe there's something to this rally?
Yeah, there is. I mean, listen, we've been talking about this rotation. Look what underperformed today was mega cap tech. Look what outperformed was obviously banks. They like that steepening yield curve. I'm just not convinced right now. I know that they're still down meaningfully from their January highs in a name like JP Morgan. That was an all-time high. I think what's really important to remember is this, that Q2, and Tim just said this, the data is going to be less bad. The data is historically horrible. GDP now by Atlanta Fed right now has Q2 GDP down 54% or so. We have 43 million Americans that have filed for unemployment over the last 3 months or so. So those numbers will get better period over period, but they're going to stay bad and depressed for a long time. And so when I see videos like that from Las Vegas last night, they actually may have the exact opposite effect. It may repel people from going to places like that. These guys were talking about the woeful Mets, in week 2, what they generally look like. Listen, all the sports may come back. The professional sports, there's no people in the stands. There aren't even the concession workers. So I think when we're thinking about the economy in the second half of 2020 and probably for the better part of 2021, we better start modeling what 10% unemployment looks like for a sustained period of time. And just to refresh your memory, that's nearly 3 times what the 60-year low print in unemployment was at 3.5% in February. And I just think that the market right now is discounting a lot of good news on the reopening, a lot of good news about a vaccine, a lot of good news about the speed of a recovery. And I just don't buy it. I do not think that the stock, listen, have at it. The stock market is up 42% from those lows, but you're telling me down 3% in the S&P 500 year to date that makes any sense given what we know about the road back? I don't buy it. 9.5
minutes into the show, we get our first Danism, have at it. I agree with you, and I take your point in terms of the chronically high unemployment that we are likely to see persist throughout the end of the year, Karen. But we've seen this time and time again in terms of betting against the consumer. The data points are, we saw that video. The Tanger CEO yesterday at that conference saying that in South Carolina, where things have reopened, 80%, the retail traffic is 80% of what it was pre-COVID in the early days. I mean, things like that make you think never bet against the consumer.
Right. I don't like to bet against the U.S. consumer, especially when the Fed is also there in the biggest way we've ever seen in the history of the Fed. So, I mean, I agree that it seems incredibly odd that we're down 3-4% in the S&P, and yet we're in the middle of a pandemic and, depression era unemployment. But I think the market is just looking at the trajectory of earnings, not the absolute level of earnings. And so I'm not looking to put new money to work here because I think so many things have moved so far. But I think that the bond move is important for banks, particularly, not just necessarily for their net interest margin, which will have a minimal effect in the short term, but I think for this sentiment about banks. Look how poorly they traded when we were talking zero interest rates or even potentially negative interest rates, and that was only, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. So, and I think that for the moment is off the table. I think we'll also see some more stimulus from the government. So that can keep the fire going. I think there's also a little bit of adverse selection when you see videos like that one, that the people who are the least afraid, the ones who wouldn't be looking to get the vaccine, they're all in. They're ready to go. I'm not. What would you rather do, Melissa? What would you rather? Fly or go to that casino?
I'd rather fly than go to the casino. I mean, yeah, would you agree, guys?
Yeah. Yes, I would agree.
I don't know.
You don't know, why not?
My view, well, first of all, going to a casino, you are in control of your social distancing. On a plane, it seems as you're not. Anyway, I mean, I think flying, we're going to talk about airlines later, but I think airlines are putting certain precautions in place that probably can't be violated as easily as the casinos. But look, I get that in the first 9 minutes, people were rushing into those casinos. Of course they were. There's plenty of people that think they are immune and think they are certainly going to be impervious from the virus, or maybe, in fact, they are. I'm not surprised that there are animal spirits for people that want to go out, spend some money, feel good about themselves. People are not in a good way emotionally right now. And I think a lot of people are willing to throw caution to the wind.